All right, so we got the truck up in the air. We can go through the whole pre-purchase inspection. Also, if you are in Southern California or in Central Florida, you can shoot it over to us. We do offer pre-purchase inspections for you. We can get it in the air, go through everything, report back with a 3 to 4 page report, and send that over to you, give you an idea of what you're getting into. Hey guys, welcome back to another vlog. Thanks for watching. The last episode, or actually I think 2 ago, we talked about year-to-year changes, kind of gave you an overview of the vehicles, but we've got a lot of calls coming in saying, okay, I figured out which vehicle I want, what year, I've narrowed it down to, but what's specific about the H1 Hummer that I should look at when I'm buying a vehicle? So this episode, what we're gonna do is give you a bunch of information, kind of a pre-purchase inspection, as we're gonna go through here, talk about some of the nuances with the H1 Hummer, the problems that they have, things to watch out for when you are purchasing a vehicle. So what we have here is a 96 H1 Hummer that we actually just bought. I literally bought this, I think, a day or 2 ago. So this will be going through full transformation. We're gonna do a new paint job on it, Duramax conversion. We'll do full interior and then put it up for sale. So you'll be able to see this thing transform over the next, I don't know, few months or so. But on this vehicle, just purchased it. It is a 96 H1, which should be a 6.5 turbo diesel, but it is not. There are a few of them out there that are not 6.5 turbo diesels that are 96s, but it does have the 96 interior. It has the 96 upgraded fuel tanks with the dual fuel tanks. So a lot of cool features about it, but we decided we're gonna go ahead and pull this engine out, put a Duramax engine in it. All right, so the first thing you're gonna look at is the overall presence of the vehicle. Walk around the truck, kind of get a good idea of the condition of the truck, but also look at the paint job. So this paint job, or this truck, has been repainted. I know this, it took me like, I don't know, 3 seconds to notice that. And I can show you right over here. I saw this little blemish right here. The reason for that is most painters are not gonna take this window track out. These window tracks are very difficult to pull out, and in fact, someone tried to and they actually broke it. It's 3 pieces, it's actually plastic welded together, and they tried to get it out, they broke it when it was coming out, so like they probably gave up on it. That's a for sure sign that it's kind of a subpar paint job. I guarantee you too, the windshields weren't pulled out. Let me take a look up here. Yeah, so you can see here, the windshields were not pulled out. You can see overspray right through here, see that? Now, you could get away with a subpar paint job and you won't really tell too much that the windshields weren't pulled out, but it's not the right way to do it. The paint jobs are very expensive here. We strip everything down to like nuts and bolts. There's nothing that's left on the vehicle that we tape up and paint around. So that is a very common way to save a lot of money on a paint job or on a repaint. So that's telling me that the paint job is probably already subpar. Next thing you want to look for is going to be like scratches in the vehicle. So sometimes like down in here, you'll see some scratches underneath the paint. This truck is really clean overall. It doesn't have any body damage, but that can happen. Take a look for those. If you can get it outside, never look at a truck at nighttime. Make sure you got daylight, some good sun. Take a look at it from different angles and see if you can see the scratches. The scratches are going to be a sign that that area has been bondoed and they just did a quick repair with it. And that bondo isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if it's put on very thick, like literally 1/8 inch or more, that stuff can crack apart, actually even less than that. 1/16 of an inch on up, that stuff can break away from the body, so you can have a big chunk of bondo just kind of eventually crack and then start to fall off the truck. So watch for that. That's also going to be a sign of the condition of the paint job. Another little telling thing to listen for on the paint, I know it kind of sounds weird, but you can actually tap on the body and see if there's a change in sound. And if there's a significant change, that may indicate that there's bondo, because that bondo is going to be kind of a denser material. It's almost a sound barrier, so it'll be like a flatter sound as opposed to kind of a tinny sound. So it may have like a sound like that versus like that. Now granted, in a corner here, it's gonna be nice and tight. The harmonics of that panel when you tap on it is gonna be changed a little bit, but it should be consistent for the most part down this area. So you can look for that. I already know the paint job on this is kind of rough. You wanna look for areas that are gonna be covered up, like problems such as rust. The H1 Hummer has some problems with rust, corrosion, and specifically galvanic corrosion. So you wanna watch for that. If you're getting a wagon or a hardtop, take a look at these upper seams up across here. You'll get some rust in here that goes across, and then down the roof here. Common area for people not to take a look at. So be really careful of that. If the truck is out of the Midwest, they salt the roads up there, be very aware that you may have an issue up there. You may have water coming into the vehicle, causing further damage inside, which you can take a look at later, but look for that. This truck is a California truck. I did a Carfax on it. Definitely recommend doing a Carfax. It gives you some indication of what the condition of the vehicle is going to be in, if it's a California truck, if it's back east, where it came out of. So you can take a look at that and see what the general history is, but I wouldn't use it as my first and final analysis of the truck and buy it sight unseen. These trucks can have problems, so you want to take a look at the truck in person, or send somebody out there to do a pre-purchase inspection. We do that all the time. We fly across the country taking a look at trucks. Can be a little expensive if you're flying us all over the country looking at vehicles, but that is an option if you had like the perfect truck or what you thought was a perfect truck. Coming back here, this is the problem area that happens and develops some corrosion, galvanic corrosion across here. So look for this. So this is actually really clean. You can see some minor corrosion there. And see that popping up in the paint? I'm not sure if you can get that, Jason, but this is very, very minor. I guarantee you just about every truck out there has this. And what happens is we get some water back up in here and moisture from the tire, kicks up in there, and then you start to get some corrosion that develops in these spots right along here. Now, you'll see trucks out there that have really bad corrosion problems, and we'll cut to that and show you some of those. So throw that up there, Jason, if you could, and you can see how bad some of these, the corrosion is out there. Another thing to look for is coming down here, the seal. We have seen some trucks out in the Midwest where the seal bulges out. It actually bulges out past the side of the vehicle. That's telling you something's up there. And it's specifically going to be rust on the inside of the truck, and you'll get some water down here that kind of collects on the inside, and it starts to rust out the whole roof here. Now this roof, I mentioned dissimilar metals a few minutes ago. Roof is steel, body panel's aluminum, bolted together. You get this galvanic corrosion, kind of a lot like having the electrodes on boats. So you have a sacrificial anode on there that kind of breaks down over time as opposed to the metals on the boat. So what's happening here is the metal's actually getting destroyed with corrosion. Coming back here, you'll also get a lot of it in this area too. So watch out on both sides. And then you can also jump up on the back, take a look at the roof seams. You have two seams that go forward, and take a look at those. I think there's right there and then right here going forward. See if there's any rust there, and it's usually pretty evident if you can see some cracks in there. Sometimes you'll have rust stains. There's a roof rack up there. Really take a look at it and inspect that area. That's really important. And then just walking around the truck, just overall condition of the truck. This truck has the older light duty bumper on it. The heavy duty bumper is all boxed in. Coming up here, there's a little bit of like rust. You can see a nick in here. Eventually started to rust and cause some corrosion around it, so it's kind of lifting off a little bit there. Again, that's not a big deal. Run your finger down this rail here. This drip rail is important. I've seen some roof racks on there. The gutter mount roof racks, like some of the factory roof racks, would clamp on. If you overload it, it'll actually bend this whole rail down, and this roof caps down here, and it'll actually separate a little bit and get water in there, get some rust in there. That can be a real big problem too, so watch that. Not as common as the rust and corrosion over here or on the roof seals, but that can happen. So just run your finger down there carefully. One other thing that's kind of interesting here, this older style hood has 2 hinge points on it. The Alphas have one single hinge in here that has a brace that goes across here. And I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect AM General did it for this reason. This hood actually develops cracks either up here that go across or down here. Again, very subtle, but those do happen over time. I think this truck has like 55,000 miles, so not a lot of miles on it, but you can see these little hairline cracks. I've never seen the hairline cracks go much more than just the hairline cracks and actually shatter out, so I really wouldn't worry about it too much. It's gonna happen. So yeah, you can take a look at that, and it gives you an indication of, I guess, the amount of wear or flexing with the hood. These frames do flex a lot, so it's probably flexing down in here, and then it's cracking across here, or down here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the engine to see what kind of condition this thing looks like and what's going on underneath there. So inside the engine bay here, this is something really important because this could have been a mistake someone could have made if they flew out somewhere to pick up a truck thinking that it is a 96 and it's a 6.5 turbo diesel, and they get out there and they don't realize that it isn't. So pop open the hood, take a look at it. Obviously there's no turbo up here. You see that no step across here, and the air intake going straight into the valley of the engine, into the engine itself through that manifold. There's your sign, there's no turbo. So this is a 6.5 NA. Big difference from a 6.5 turbo diesel. So taking a look at this, the first visual thing that I see is some really shoddy wiring. This right here is really bad. You've got these crimped on connectors. First off, crimped on connectors, butt connectors, horrible way to go, especially in the Duramax trucks. This is just really shoddy. I mean, imagine this thing gets a little corrosion, loosens up, falls out. It's got power, who knows what it could do. Probably would blow a fuse if it was fused correctly, but I kind of doubt it because, I mean, an electrician isn't gonna wire this thing up like this. Here's some butt connectors too. So yeah, this stuff is potentially dangerous. Just be aware of that. It's easily fixable, especially when it's at this level here, but you should be aware of that. But overall on the top side, it doesn't look that bad. It looks like a truck that would have, 50,000 miles on it or so. All right, so we got the truck up in the air. We can go through the whole pre-purchase inspection. Also, if you are in Southern California or in Central Florida, you can shoot it over to us. We do offer pre-purchase inspections for you. We can get it in the air, go through everything, report back with a 3 to 4 page report, and send that over to you, give you an idea of what you're getting into. But getting into this truck, let's go ahead and jump underneath it. So I've got a flashlight here. Instantly, right off the bat, check this out. You've got this vent line that's off. Not necessarily a big deal, however, you gotta be careful with getting water inside those guys. You get water inside the geared hub, you can cause some damage. Those things are really almost indestructible. Very seldom do we ever see them fail, but you don't want water in there, especially if the truck's been sitting around a lot. That could be a problem. So on this truck, if I was buying this personally, I would probably take this wheel off, pull the drain plug and see what's in there, or at least take the inspection or the fill plug out and try to dip it and see if there's any water in there. I think that would probably be pretty important. And also, if you don't know, these are called portal axles or geared hubs in our world. Excuse me, the geared hubs. The input is higher than the output. So that's what gives you the ground clearance that the Hummers have, and makes a big difference off-roading. So there's that guy. These CTIS lines have been replaced, so someone was in here trying to potentially fix a problem. That's all new. And then over here, let's see what we got. Another vent line. Yeah, we got another vent line off on this side here. So that's something we're gonna go through and take a look at. Also, if you're looking up here, all the rubber is kind of getting old, so that needs to be replaced and addressed. You've got this tie rod here. See that tie rod boot? That guy is damaged. There's a little play in it, so yeah, that's typical. A lot of times on these trucks, you're gonna get some issues with the steering components. The steering components tend to fail. You're running roughly 38-inch tires. If you got run flats inside here, you're talking, could be 250 pounds of tire. That's a lot of weight kind of shimmying down the road. So it tears up the whole steering components here, and that stuff isn't cheap. So that's one thing that you gotta watch out for and make sure that you're taking care of on your truck, is if you do have something going out, get it replaced right away, because otherwise you're replacing the entire steering system here, which could be 4 grand, 5 grand. So it adds up pretty quick. Another spot to look at is this, we call them the blue star seals. There's actually a star seal that goes inside here, that goes into the diff, that holds that the output shaft in place. And that seal just over time deteriorates and fails. And you can see that's happened here because there's a little bit of oil residue on it. You see that discoloration where you have rust, which is normal, and then you have that darker rust here. So you've got oil dripping down on here. This is not bad. If it is bad, it'll actually ruin your pads, causes some other problems, but it's not necessarily that bad on this guy. That's definitely something to look for. Also take a look at all your rubber. The half shafts look great on it. The flaking of the paint here, that's normal, not a big deal. The boots look like they're in good shape. Check the boots on the ball joints. Let me see. Yeah, these ball joints have not been replaced for many, many years. I don't know if you can see that, Jason, but up inside there, right here, see that cracking going on? So that's just indicative of not being replaced for a long time. This boot has been greased, not too important, but all the steering components probably need to be replaced on this guy. Coming down the line, it looks like an injector leak up here. Looks like diesel fuel. And I'm just looking at it right now. Just the consistency looks very oily, not a thicker diesel oil, but just a fuel leak. Here's obviously a decent leak going on right here. Initially, I would think that it's going to be a rear main seal, which is going to be a lot of work, but I also see it coming out the top, so something's going on up there too. Yeah, there's definitely an oil leak going on there, so that's definitely an issue you want to get addressed right away. It's not an issue for us because we're going to replace that whole engine, so I really don't care too much about that. But if this was a 6.5 turbo diesel, I probably would just do a paint job, clean up the inside, and then make sure everything's mechanically 100% and then sell it. But because it has a 6.5 NA, I think we're gonna just drop a Duramax engine in there. Let's go back here now. Transfer case. The transfer case leak just needs to be resealed. Fairly simple. Just pop this guy out. It's probably about 3 hours or so. Split the case, reseal it up. See some oil there. Exhaust looks fine. Okay, so here's another indicator. See this guy right here? There was a heat shield on here at one time and it's gone. And you can see, check this out. See those marks across there? It's all black on this drive shaft, and over here, it's all kind of rusted and sanded down a little bit. What's happened is this fuel tank has shifted over a little bit. That's a common problem. So you gotta make sure it's pulled over and it's bolted in place correctly. It looks like someone has been in here because that lock washer is not factory. You see how much bigger it is? So something's going on there. We'll have to address that little problem. If this was a truck I was buying, I would not be driving this truck across country just for fear of wearing a hole in the tank. The tank looks perfectly fine except for the heat shield's missing on it. But again, going over the truck, I mean, there's really no rust at all. This is just surface rust right here on the exhaust normal. There's a little minor rust here, but that's not necessarily anything more than surface rust. Not an issue at all. The areas you want to watch out for are going to be down in here. If you have any rust that's going on, it's going to definitely show in the lower control arms. And then back here, you've got the differential has a leak, and it's probably just this gasket on the cover. So perfect time to pull the diff cover off, reseal it, check the gears, make sure everything's good, and then replace all the fluid, obviously. But yeah, that's not an issue. Just a couple hours worth of work, so be aware of that. Also, the star seal on this guy is bad too. You can see some oil popping up here. It's coming out. Now, a really bad star seal, what's going to happen is you're driving it, you heat up the truck, you heat up the brakes, and you pull in and you smell like a burning oil. Go to the back of the truck, take a look back here. Oftentimes it's back in this area here, and it could also be the calipers. The calipers will get hung up and start to overheat the rotors. Once the rotors overheat, they tear up the star seals, and once that happens, it dumps oil out on the rotors, burning that off. And extreme cases with a e-brake that's hanging up, you'll actually see smoke kind of pouring out of the rotors here. So be aware of that. If you smell that, check your emergency brake and make sure it has release. So this is the e-brake cable right here, and it comes back, and you can see this e-brake arm right here, and it's resting up against that stop. So this guy's good. So if you set the e-brake and then release it and it stops like an 1/8 inch from there, then you've got issues, or a 1/4 inch. Let's check the other one too. Yeah, so that guy's stopped out too. You're good there. I've had that happen before. And then in an earlier vlog, I think it was the buyer's guide, we were talking about the central tire inflation system and the stainless steel braided lines. On the older model trucks, this was just a little plastic line that went across here, and it would cross over up in that area right above my finger here, and this rotor would overheat with the hung e-brake, and it would throw a ton of heat up above it and then actually melt that line, and you lose all air in the back of the truck. So that happened to me once. That was kind of fun. And just going around the truck, just take a look at all the ball joints. Check all the rubber. Half shafts on this truck look great. Ball joints look bad. They need to be replaced. And again, minor rust. Okay, so yeah, check this out. Here is somebody's attempt at fixing the fuel tank. Come up here, Jason. See this guy? This is a fix, or an attempted fix. This little bracket here to actually pull the fuel tank over to the frame, back to its original location. So for some reason, this guy's shifting over. Someone heard probably the screeching sound or grinding sound from the heat shield hitting the drive shaft. So they went down in there, put this guy in here to kind of suck it over, pull it over in place, and then they put remove the heat shield. So that is a problem that needs to be addressed, and that's also why it's not touching right now. It's definitely clearing it. So I guess I misspoke. You could drive this across country if you needed to. It's just not right. Definitely needs to be replaced or fixed properly. But that is an issue on a lot of trucks, so just take a look at that. But overall, there's not much rust. Really, it's a clean truck. Coming back here, you see a lot of rust if it was a Midwest truck. Body looks really good up there. Yeah, so overall, really good on the bottom side. Just look for those little areas. Look for anything that's out of the norm. Vent line over here is correct and set up properly. Oh, this is the other side. Yeah, it's good over here too. So yeah, it's a good truck. Very clean. A couple issues, but easily fixed. Except for that engine stuff, the engine leak, that could be a bigger problem. Not for us, because we're gonna ditch the engine and go with the Duramax, but if this is gonna be your personal truck, you may wanna shy away from this truck if you weren't gonna be replacing that engine, or at least see if you can get a discounted price just for the repair. That could easily be $1,500 bucks, $2,000. Okay, so we're inside the truck. Flip all the light switches on. Make sure they're all working. The cargo lights. I'm sure you're gonna have some cargo lights out. I noticed there's a couple here that are out. The windshield wipers work, as well as the washer function. So windshield wipers on, wash goes up. So pretty simple. Make sure the mirrors work. Obviously, common sense stuff. Coming over to the inflate, deflate, make sure all that stuff works. Now, that's something to watch for, is taking a look at the CTIS system. The central tire inflation system does have some issues. AM General even notates that it's okay to lose a couple pounds of pressure overnight. I think that's a bit much, because you can get them perfect and fix all the leaks, but oftentimes you're constantly chasing yourself around in circles trying to fix all the leaks. So take a look for any indications that the previous owner has a problem with CTIS and what that problem may be. So let's take a quick look at this truck, because this is one of the indicators here. And yeah, take a look at this. So this has already been disconnected. It's not connected. This is a factory CTIS line going in. That's another problem with it too. So this thing isn't snapping down, and I can tell you what happened. Okay, so the CTIS system has some issues. Someone's disconnected it. And that's your first sign that it's disconnected, there's a problem with it. Second one is, you can see this tab here. This tab is a little mangled. The spring on it doesn't release. So it's just kind of sitting there. You should be able to push it in, and the second you release it, it pops back out. So it can snap on. So it is holding now, but what happened was, someone was working on this vehicle on the CTIS that shouldn't be. They put I think it's a 9/16 wrench on there, and literally you have, I don't know, an eighth of a throw on it. So you can turn that fitting about 1/8 of an inch or so, and that's it. And then you have to readjust. It's a pain, it takes time. Every new tech that's working on this, what they typically do is they'll put a wrench on there and they'll go all the way around. And what happens is, when they bring their wrench all the way around, it damages this little fitting here. And I don't know, hey Cheeto, how much do these guys cost, these valves? I'm not sure. I think they were like 150 bucks or something. So yeah, they're expensive. Cheeto doesn't even know they're that expensive. So watch for that. So I've seen it happen a lot. Be careful about that. It's got some issues. I don't know the extent of it. Probably not that bad. Everything's fixable, everything's repairable. But one of the more common issues with the CTIS is the actual spindle on the inside here. You'll have a seal, and that seal will actually wear a ring on the spindle. So when that goes out, that can get expensive to replace. And I want to say that thing was like 250 bucks or so. And I don't know how many hours it takes. I would guess probably 3 hours or so per side. Don't quote me on that, but it starts to get expensive when you have to replace that. Just simply replacing the seal may not fix it if it's actually grooved inside the metal spindle. So typically when you see that problem, it exists when you're holding air pressure. Everything's fine for weeks, for months, however long you want to go. But then you rotate the tires half a turn or so, and it hits that area of the spindle that creates a leak, and then obviously you start to lose pressure, and overnight you can lose all the pressure in the tire. So that's difficult to obviously check for when you're inspecting a vehicle, because you probably are only there for an hour or so. But maybe the seller is going to be honest and tell you what's going on with it. But that's a sign that we have some type of CTIS leak, and it could easily be just that valve that's bad. I don't like those valves. Those valves are, they're not quick disconnects. They're also not dual isolating. So it isolates on one side, on the wheel side when you disconnect it, but you also have the other side connected. So we have a CTIS system, it's dual isolating and it's quick disconnect. So you literally just go in there, pop it off entirely, and you don't need to put a wrench on that wheel to get, or on that CTIS to get the whole wheel off. Where on this one, you would have to. All right, so we're back inside the truck, going over the CTIS stuff. That is definitely a major point to kind of look at, because that can get kind of expensive with a couple grand.
What's up, fellas?
Gus Anderson.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
You're doing a quick little vlog. You want to be in the vlog? Obviously.
I guess I'm just, I'm now, I'm in it. Yeah. I'll welcome myself to that. A little trivia. This thing was owned by MIT one time.
Really?
Yeah, customer pointed out, it's got this bar tag here, bar label. I don't know what that was for. Maybe they checked the vehicles out, but he said they were using it for some kind of working on a different platform, trying to figure out the wiring, do some different creative wiring things.
Wiring?
Yeah.
Because we just went through underneath the hood, and there's literally I hope MIT did not do the wiring in there.
No way.
There's not a lot, but there is a house like Romex wire coming up, like the solid copper wire, going to a buck connector that's about to rust and like corrode off to a automotive grade wire coming out.
Wow, right. So there's a creative wiring.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So could be, could not be.
That would definitely validate creative wiring.
But that makes sense. So the previous owner, I think, owned it for like 17 years, and then there was somebody else for like a year. So that was MIT.
Wow.
Interesting. That's kind of cool. A little bit of history and trivia.
Yeah, pretty neat. Anyway, that was me.
Cool. Right. Well, I guess Anderson's out. So going back to substance. So yeah, go through all your switches, make sure everything works. One of the things too is like if the window switch over here doesn't work, but it works over here on the center console, the switch is probably just bad. Those switches go out. They're pretty reasonable. I think they're like 20 bucks or so. Then coming on the inside of the truck, you'll notice this has the upgraded AC system. So that's kind of a nice feature to have out of this truck. And then one of the other kind of nuances that these trucks can develop is that neutral safety switch inside here. They tend to wear out, and there's actually a little switch inside here that gets worn out inside the shifter. So if you have a situation, let me see if this one has any issues, but you go to start it and it doesn't start right away, or the seller says, oh yeah, you got to wiggle the shifter, it's that switch that's going out. Paul Hyde in Florida actually came up with a really good fix for it, where you don't have to buy a new shifter for $1,000 plus. You can actually pull it apart, and he can drill it out and then relocate that switch. So it does work properly. So beyond the mechanical side of all the switches and so forth, working or not working, not a big deal there. But firing up the truck, obviously make sure you got oil pressure. That's your first thing. Make sure that oil pressure comes up. We could probably do a quick fire up. Got to wait to start light, wait for that to go out. Just not used to that. Duramaxes don't have that. At least they happen so fast you don't see it happen. So yeah, you're right up to 40 PSI. That's great. Now that 40 PSI will drop down considerably. It'll drop down to at idle when it's hot. I've seen it around 12 or so. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little less. So don't freak out too much about that. But when you are running at higher speeds, it should be, plus 25, 30 PSI. We can get you the exact specs on it, but that is something to watch out for. Now the other thing too is on the gauge itself, the temperature gauge. The truck runs hotter than all other GM 6.5 turbo diesels. And the reason for that is the 45-degree radiator, the whole cooling stack is at an angle. It just doesn't cool as well as a pickup truck does. So AM General changed the temperature readout to allow 220 degrees to be normal operating temperature. And unfortunately, it is normal operating temperature. Later, they came out with a new gauge that was a dummy gauge that literally said you're either okay or you're hot. It doesn't give you much information at all. This one, at least you have some temperature numbers on there you can kind of read out and get an idea what it's at. So something really important to do is when you go take a look at a vehicle, bring a scanner with you, plug it into the OBD2 port, which is down here, and read out any trouble codes on there. There are diagnostic trouble codes or DTCs, and it's going to tell you a code like P0124. Whatever that is, and then you can just Google it and it'll tell you what the issue is. So I have seen, and actually that white truck over there came in, customer just bought it, and he said, oh yeah, take a look at the truck. And I was like, oh yeah, you got to check engine light, your TT4 system's out. He's like, what? How? There's no check engine light. I was like, yeah, there's black tape covering up your check engine light. So watch for that. Or I've also seen a company where they actually pull it out and then take the light bulb out of the back of the indicator. So be careful of that. Running the scanner is going to show you what's going on. One other thing you can do is pop this little cover off here. Take a look down in there and see if there's any wires. I actually haven't looked in here, but already I can see something going on. So just be aware of that. This is a factory wire harness here, but this is not factory. So something's going on there. So something else to look for is aftermarket wiring on the stereo system, under the dash. We got an indication there's something going on down here. Again, minor stuff. It's not, and honestly, there's no real issue with what I see there yet, but there's an indication that something's going on here. There is aftermarket stereo system. One really cool, easy way to take a look underneath the doghouse without actually pulling everything out is you pop out this cup holder. Really simple. So Jason, why don't you swing around here? We'll take a look inside here. Okay, so instantly I can see a bunch of wires in here that's aftermarket. And yeah, this is all an aftermarket alarm system. So this stuff you got to be really careful with. This is really a common problem. You can see all the butt, look at this. You got butt connectors going on all over the place. This is what starts fires in vehicles. Just be really careful of that stuff. You shouldn't have any butt connectors. The problem is most people are fairly price conscious when they install an alarm system, and they've got an alarm system that can be installed for, let's say, 500 bucks. They come to us and it's $1,500. There's a big difference there. Reason for that is we'll spend almost all day wiring in an alarm system. We're not using butt connectors. We're literally soldering everything together, heat shrink on there. It's done correctly. Ultimately, you get what you pay for. And I think in one of the first episodes, I showed you a truck that was burnt down from a faulty stereo shop, or a stereo shop doing faulty work. Easy way to take a look inside here, see what's going on. Now, we had one, actually we see a lot of trucks that come through here with multiple stereo systems. Over the years, and previous owners will replace the stereo with a new stereo, and they leave all the old wire harnesses in place. It's just easier to do it that way. Dangerous though, super dangerous. And in one situation we had, actually when Sanderson was a tech here years ago, he pulled out almost an entire 55-gallon bucket of wire. I mean, it was just crazy, the amount of wires that came out from underneath the dash. He had wires going back through the headliner. It was crazy, and I've got a picture somewhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a picture of
you have a picture
on
of
our Facebook.
Oh,
it's
okay,
on
here.
Our Facebook.
Yeah,
because I remember taking pictures of that crazy mess of wires. Yeah.
So throw it up, Jason. You got to show people how bad some of the wire harnesses that are wiring jobs that are out there. And it's not just one shop, it's multiple shops throwing wires and wires. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the main interior area, but there is one area I want to show you. Earlier on, I mentioned that you can develop some rust on the inside of the vehicle and bulge out that seal between the roof as well as the fender panel. So there's an area that collects that water. So let's go back there and take a look at it. All right, so the final area is up in this rail here. There's a little channel along this this roof where it meets the fender, and you'll get rust right down in through here. Now obviously we have some soundproofing on this truck, but in this area right through here you'll get some rust, and water will actually develop in these little areas and just kind of sit there and just rust through everything. So watch those areas, make sure you pull up the carpets, take a look at them on both sides. And let me take a look at this side. Yeah, this side is really clean. I mean, it's dirty, but there's no rust on it. So you want to look for those little tracks in there and make sure that they're fairly clean. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the whole truck. Obviously check the doors, open them, close them, make sure everything functions properly. The doors oftentimes will sag a little bit. I shouldn't say sag, but they'll drop down a little bit. So if you feel that door close and kind of lift up, that is normal. We see that problem often. It's very easy to adjust the doors up slightly. It's an easy fix. I notice these doors are actually catching a little bit right here. And again, that's normal. We can fix that. It's really easy to fix and shim up correctly. So I think that pretty much wraps up like the whole truck. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate you watching the pre-purchase inspection. If you guys need more help, shoot us a call. We're happy to help out. You can even email us pictures of the vehicle you're looking at. We get emails all the time with photographs and kind of background on the vehicle. Shoot, we may even have worked on the truck and know that truck too. So we're happy to help any way we can. We also have a new toy upstairs that we'll be showcasing here shortly, but we're actually printing t-shirts upstairs. Hey Flo, come over here. Flo's our new model, by the way, if you didn't notice. Here's our new t-shirt. Beautiful Hummer shirt. Look at that guy. Look at that. Awesome.
A little dirty, but
Yeah,
there
it's
it
looking
is.
good, huh? So thanks for watching, folks, and then make sure you
Hit that subscribe button. There.
yeah
Wherever. Down there.
somewhere. Thanks, folks.
I got no dancing skills. So I
I'm
have
more
no
like
idea.
50 Cent dancing.
There you go.
So beyond the mechanic. Make up your mind.
What you want, boy? Down my face.
Watch the vlog more. You'll see the Sanderson kick happen. It's pretty cool. Like.
Broken body, you gotta keep